Good evening for our listeners. This is the Changing the Narrative podcast with your host, Dr. Gabriel Warren and Carl Benson. Of course, Gabriel Warren is not here today. He is on a much needed vacation for his anniversary with his wife. So I will be holding it down today with our first guest. And I'm excited to speak to you today, but our first guest will be the Honorable Brother, Chris V. Ray, JD, International President of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Welcome. How are you, sir?
I'm well. I'm a little tired, but I'm well. I'm traveling the last couple of weeks, but I just got off an airplane about 4 or 5 hours ago, so
Okay. Well, I absolutely appreciate you making the time for this interview, and we'll keep it conversational, so it won't be too difficult of a lift, hopefully, for you, and then get you back to resting a little bit before the next week starts. But for our listeners, let's start by sharing a little bit more about who you are and what you do professionally.
I'm just a little island boy from St. Thomas, who was raised by his grandmother that was a track and field All-American, went to the Army, worked on Capitol Hill, went to law school, retired from the National Guard, became the mayor of his hometown in Spring Lake, North Carolina, became international president of Phi Beta Sigma, started a couple of companies, started a couple of nonprofits, and now I'm the president of a historically Black college and university. Somewhere along the lines there, I got married, had some kids, and that's a little low me.
That's a soft sell, I guess. We can figure out. We'll try to dig into some of that. Of course, it's amazingly impressive, of course, for someone at such a young age, obviously. But I think that the reality is we're excited to have someone with your length of career and the differences in that career on the podcast. So. And this will be hard to narrow down this question because of all the things you do, but can you just tell the listeners how important it is for representation for a Black man in all the different career fields that you have held and are holding, the importance of being Black in all of those? And it's hard to narrow that down because you're doing a lot of things, but tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I think, it's important being in all those spaces that I've had the opportunity to serve, whether as a military officer, where sometimes I was the only Black man in the room making decisions when we talk about sending troops to war, talking about unveiling huge missions or projects that had to be undertaken, or being in rooms in government where I was, again, the only person of color, only Black man in the room. But representation allows for us to bring a perspective to the table and to the room that, probably wouldn't be there. I don't fault, other cultures, other races, for not knowing what they should do for Black men or Black people because they're not Black. Now, we are one race, we're the human race, right? But the reality is that we're all on this planet and we all come from various backgrounds, and there are some shared and there are some lived experiences that a lot of folks don't get an opportunity to live if you're not Black, right?
Right.
And there are some things that I'll never understand as, that my white male counterparts or my Hispanic male counterparts or my Asian male counterparts. So being in the room matters because when a decision is being made, specifically one that's going to impact the lives of people, it's good to be able to say, well, did we think about this? And I've been in the room where I've brought the Black perspective and been unapologetic about it because it was necessary, because there was going to be a huge decision that was going to be made that had that voice not been in the room, a lot of individuals would have been harmed by the policy that would have eventually made its way to the governing body that would have made the decision and then go from there. And so I don't think that, we should never underestimate the power and the importance, I should say, of being in the room, because bringing our experience, bringing our lived experience, and bringing that representation hopefully educates a group of people to say, you know what, we didn't think about that. And, quietly, my inside Chris is like, yeah, you're damn right you didn't think about it. Why would you? Right? Because it's coming from a Black male's perspective. So, yeah.
Right, right. So taking some of that background that you go into these rooms with on a daily basis, and all of the responsibilities that you have as both the international president of Phi Beta Sigma and the president of college, historically Black college, what motivates you to wake up and do this every day? What gets you moving?
Yeah, man. So, that's a great question, because it's hard work, right? Whenever one can wake up in the morning and just live and I'm just gonna say it, a humdrum life, right? You wake up, you go to work, you sit at your cubicle or in your office, and you do your team meetings, and you shuffle paper around and check emails and go on social media for a while, and you hope to turn in your project that you need to for the team that you're working on, or to the boss, and you get your paycheck, and then you go home, you got your family, you got things you got to do. You got to, take kids to soccer practice and baseball, and you got weekends and cookouts, and trying to hold, hopefully your marriage together, and hopefully things are going well in that department, and it may not be. And so it's so easy as a human being to just be caught up in what you have going on. What we tend to miss is that we're all connected. This big, beautiful slash ugly thing called humanity, we're all connected. And what motivates me when I get up every day is knowing that I get the opportunity to lead a fraternity of men who are doing amazing things in the community every day around the world. And when I take my vision and I convince the program directors or other individuals to put out programming. And I'm seeing the food drives, the book drives, the helping the seniors, the informationals around men's health, the engagement around voting. I'm watching a group of men continue a legacy of not only of our founders, but an organization that is literally impacting the lives of people every day. That excites me. And then when I think about having this once in a lifetime opportunity to be a college president, knowing that I am laying the groundwork for some individual who is seeking a piece of paper that they know is essential to put in their toolbox of life for them to move potentially to the next economic rung of life, right? And hopefully along the way, you're giving them values and ideas and opening up their mind to a world that's going to transform the trajectory of their family. And so I love to always say, when I was a kid growing up, my grandmother, um, you know, I remember watching some of my uncles used to sit out on the back porch, drinking and smoking. We grew up in a in the hood. And I remember as a kid, I was like, man, they look like they're having a great time. I mean, middle of the day. I mean, you're in the middle of the day, you're at home, my gosh, I can't wait. And I remember my grandmother smacking me in the back of the head and saying, that's not going to be your story. Your responsibility is to get educated and help move the needle for our family. I didn't understand that then. And then I fast forward, 20, 30 years later, and I realized that I've taken my family from the back porches of drinking and smoking, to the mayor's office, to the international president of a multi-million-dollar global nonprofit organization, to being the president of a whole college. That's the power of education. And that is why I get up every day and do what I do, because if I can inspire someone to do it, then what's happening is that he or she is changing the trajectory of their family as well. So I don't intend for my family to go back to the back porches of drinking and smoking, right? I got, a whole new legacy of individuals who know nothing but excellence, who knows nothing but living a different lifestyle, and they now know that this is our standard, and now let's what is next. We're talking about building a family compound one day where
Right,
everyone will have their own individual houses all on the same land, right?
right,
And
right.
my kids don't even flinch when I say that, because they expect, okay, yeah, we'll do that, Dad. We'll, get these 200-300 acres and build our own property on there, our
Right.
own land, our own homes, and have our own individual families and all be connected to the big house, right? So that's the power of why I do what I do.
Absolutely. Amazing. Thank you for that. Switching gears and also just reflecting on obviously all the career paths you've had and you are having, how do you then see the portrayal of Black men in media? Because clearly you don't fit that profile, right? The typical profile. So how do you see that portrayal of Black men in media and that misconception that a number of folks have about Black men?
Yeah, so that's so I'm a little skewed on that because you know I'm a part of Phi Beta Sigma. I'm around professional Black men all the time. I get to see the very best of who we are. It's unfortunate that there are media outlets in Hollywood and other places that um, try to, they do stereotype and cast an image about us and how, and those who don't know our culture or don't know who we are, don't know that we are doctors, lawyers, scientists, military officers, college president, and it's unfortunate. But I'm reminded all the time. I mean, even, this past weekend I was in Tampa, Florida for Omega Sci-Fi's conclave they're having right now. Um, we brought greetings at the public ceremony on Friday. I stayed a couple of extra days to do some work there on behalf of Phi Beta Sigma. But in my downtime, when I was just sitting there in the lobby and chit-chatting with a couple of buddies of mine, I ran into a good friend of mine who's an Omega. He's a judge. I ran into another good friend of mine. He's an attorney. Um, and I'm just reminded, I get the opportunity to be around a lot of Black men who do amazing things. And uh and so I can't, unless we own our own media company, and clearly we need to own more than one, outside of BET, from back in the day. Um, I can't, it's like those are one of those issues that that the media portrays us in a certain way. Um, all I can do, because I live in a nation with 350 million people, when my people are 12%, 13% of the population. The majority of folks who are the color of my skin. Let me say that. Um, so unfortunately, the other uh, 60 or whatever, 70% of white Americans who live here, who control land, who control the media markets, who control the ability to write that narrative. All we can do is just continue to be in the spaces that we control and continue to produce more of us. That's it, right? That's why we mentor in Phi Beta Sigma. That's why we continue to build associations of Black men who are doing positive things and continuously growing, that cadre of us who are out there doing positive things and making a difference.
Appreciate that. So if you had to write your life's mission statement in one phrase or one sentence, however it looks for you, what would it be? And then do you feel you're living up to what that would be that you wrote down?
Oh man, if I had to write out a phrase, I would say excellence is my watchword. Um, and just don't ever give up. I would really put comma, don't ever give up,
Mhm.
right? No matter um, when I do something, I really do something that specifically, especially something I'm very, very interested in. I really do give it my all, right? And I work really hard. These things and these opportunities that I've gotten in life has not come from any, you know, just dropped out the sky, other than, God having favor in my life and me in the moment, in those opportunities, doing the very best that I can. Um, uh, because excellence is my watchword, right? And then on the other part of it, comma, don't ever give up, because life gonna slap you around a couple of times. And it's very easy to fall into a funk, to fall into a hole, and actually stay in that hole. um, if you want something bad enough, um, you gotta go deep within yourself, man. You gotta do self-work. A lot of people don't do a lot of self-work. A lot of people are not honest with themselves. A lot of people aren't um, they're so busy watching others that they're not watching themselves. Uh, I do I really do mind my own business. Um, I don't think people even understand how much I mind my own business. Like, I am very focused on me, making me a better father, being a better husband, being a better president, being a better human being. I mean, I just focus on me, man. I really don't care about what other people have going on in their life. I'm not that interested. I'm not that vested. And so that opportunity, that time, and I would be, you know, looking at other folks and wondering why this guy speaks better than me, or why he has all these other things more than me. I'm literally working on bettering me so that I can live the life that I want, right? Um, and and a lot of us just don't. We spend so much time doing that, and I just can't. And so that's why, because I know that trials and tribulations are going to come. I just know this, right? I've lived on this planet now for 46 years, and I've had some great days. I've had some horrible days, and I've made some horrible decisions in my life that has, created the swirl that I've been in, or was in. And but I kept on going, right? And having the ability to go is because I've done enough self-work. And so that when the tough times come, yeah, I get knocked down to my knee, and then I shake it off, and I get back up, because I've been pouring into me for long enough, and asking God to pour into me, um, so that I'm able to um, withstand the blows that I know are going to come. So.
Right. Amazing. So if you're in a room talking to a bunch of young people, maybe high school seniors, high school juniors, what's one misconception about our society that you would tell them? Or what is one of those things you would tell them is a misconception about Black men in our society, and then how we might go about changing that misconception as young people?
Yeah, so I would tell them that they are good enough, right? Society tries to make us feel like we are inferior. Uh, and that, of course, that's not the truth, right? Uh, if I study, if I, practice, I can be just as good as anyone else in the room. Now, and if I come in unprepared, yeah, I'm gonna get my clock clean, right? Yeah, it is what it is, right? And but man, if we actually believe that we could be excellent,
Mhm.
it's just there is. I mean, I am just a living witness of it, man. I'm telling you, I'm just like, sometimes I still can't believe it, and I'm like, what's next? What could be next, right? It's, you know, some people. I think about Phi Beta Sigma. We've initiated 300,000 men over the last 110 years, right? Only 35 men have had the privilege out of these 300,000 men to lead this global organization. You know, uh, just 35. And so you have brothers who go literally a lifetime. The majority of the brothers in this fraternity, that's less of a percent, go their entire lifetime never having that opportunity. Then you have individuals who are into politics, they run for office, they never win. Folks, I've had the opportunity to not only be elected once, not twice, but three times as mayor of a city. Again, one of them things that just don't really happen. to everybody,
You're right,
just,
right, exactly. Not three times either.
not three times. I was the mayor of a city, that was, I was 34, 30, yeah, I was like 34 when that happened, something crazy like that. And so and and so my grandmother, God rest her soul. I mean, man, she that lady was something else, man. She poured so much good stuff into me, but one thing that she made me believe, and it was that I was good enough. She's like, babe, of course you hear the cliche, you could be anything you put your mind to. And I messed around and believed that lady, because she would always remind me that I am good enough. I can go toe to toe with anyone, any given day, in the boardroom, in the courtroom, in the whatever room. But on the flip side, you got to put in the work.
Right.
You just got to put in the work. And so when this opportunity for me to become president of Barber-Scotia College came about, and this is a huge lift, right? I wake up every day working to save an entire college, right? To invigorate this school that has fallen off over the last 20 years. But I walk into that opportunity full of confidence of knowing that my experiences have prepared me, because I've worked so hard in so many other spaces, um, and that this challenge is nothing short of not being able to accomplish it. I just got to put in the work. I got to put in the work, and so I say that to anyone. We are good enough. You can stand toe to toe with anybody, but you got to put in the work, and that's in the subject matter that you are in, whatever job. If you're working your way up, man, you working as a waiter, you better need to be the best waiter you can be. That exercise, translates into what the next job is going to be. Every job continues to build onto the next, to where, you wake up one day and, you know, you're running a whole school.
Yeah, right, right. So what does success look like for you? How do you define it? What does it look like?
Yeah, man, yeah. So, I thought about this a lot, and um, but and I know that success is different for a lot of people, but or what it is for them. So, I know that everyone doesn't get the opportunity to have children, right? Yeah, for a lot of different reasons in life. Um, for some reason God has, allowed that to be my story, in a big way. Um, and really success for me is really seeing how they turn out, right? And um, because being, as my kids like to call me, they're, and I just chuckle, they call me, they got all kinds of names for me. President Dad. Um, you know, you're a famous dad. They always, they were like, my friends came up to me, they saw you on TV and blah, 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 blah. I never try to put pressure on my kids, but success for me in living a successful life is knowing that I got entrusted with some kids, right? Um, my hope is that they will never experience what I experienced. They're going to, of course, have their own experiences, but that they're successful as well, right? Um, and that comes from me having to be an example, me finding the time in this busy life that I have to show up for them in the best way that I can, explaining all of that to them and all of their various different personalities, um, you know. Um, but when I think about all the things I've done and I've accomplished, I really want my kids to turn out good. Like I want like really good human beings, right? Because the world is full of so many horrible human beings. But if I could, through my lineage, through my loins, be able to contribute, um, to the humanity of one more good person, to open up the door for an old lady, or be able to mentor another, group of kids, be at a soup kitchen or something like that, man, I will live much longer than all the titles that I've had. So when I think about all the values that my grandmother poured into me, somebody poured that into her. And
Mm.
whoever poured that into her, poured that into that other person. So literally through all of us, somebody's living forever, right? And I just want to continue to perpetuate that. And 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 that will be success for me, is that when the good Lord calls me home to glory, and I hope that it's, one of those, I'm an old man in my bed, all my kids are around me. I hope, I really do pray that the last image I see is all of them, and they're all doing well. They're all successful in whatever is success for them in their own right. Um, and I know that I would have helped to contribute to humanity, you know, some more good human beings to help, you know, more human beings. So, yeah.
Awesome. Right on. So as we're coming to the last few questions, so if you could just, in your opinion, tell me and our listeners, of course, what should the narrative be on Black men in America?
Well, hopefully, folks would um, first realize that if you have a negative connotation about the narrative of Black men, you should rethink it, right? I had to, pull this white colleague of mine all the way together a couple of days ago, when we were talking about the welfare system, right? And in some way, somehow, in a slick comment, they talked about, Black fathers not being in the home and that whole narrative. And then I had to remind him, I said, hey, you do know that there are more white women on welfare than Black women in America. So what does that mean? That more white men are absolutely not taking care of their children, but those of us with jobs are. He stopped and he paused. And to your point from your earlier statement, when you talked about the media and what they perceive, and we don't recognize that in a country of 350 million people, 350 million people, right? You know, we are 55, 65 million of that 350 million, right? You think about the welfare system in this country. That ain't that ain't us. That's not us at all. That's single white women in this country that is being supported by the system. Now, hey, I'm all about making sure we have those social programs to be safety nets in our community. I'm a huge proponent of that. Um, but even if you add up all the Hispanics and you add up all of the Blacks, it still is not as much as the white women who are on the program. And you normally get on welfare, or so, get social service programs when there's an absent male in the household. So a lot of white men don't pay child support. A lot of white men, have baby mamas out there. And so when we start thinking about the narrative and rewriting the narrative, I would first want folks to really sit back and understand the country in which we're in, um, and recognize that a lot of these issues, a lot of these programs that we have that's helping, the poorest of the poor, um, now by percentage, because we're a smaller population, well, a greater percentage of our population, is in poverty. Um, um, but by the raw numbers, it is what it is, right? And so when folks start rethinking the narrative about Black men not showing up for their kids, and Black men being lazy, not wanting to work hard, and I got a whole fraternity full of men who I could, change that conversation. And then I know four other fraternities alone that have the same thing. And so I would ask folks to really take time to really think about what you're hearing when you hear what Black men are doing and not doing. You know, there's a lot of successful Black men in this country, many of them unsung heroes. Many of them will never make it to the pantheons where their names will be in lights, but then many of them are doing good work in our communities. They're the deacons, they're, the elders. I mean, these are the, good men that are holding up, that walking around with all the keys to the church, doing the Meals on Wheels, helping to send somebody's kid to college, helping to raise money. I mean, I know so many amazing Black men doing so many things. So it's hard for me you know, to think otherwise because I see it all the time. And we're out there. And the world is bigger than the television. The world is bigger, um, you know, uh, either, than just social media. There are really some good human beings out there that are doing some good work. And we just have to, you just have to know that,
Right.
You just have to know that. Like,
Right.
it's not, this is it.
Right.
Just,
Right.
you know, I would say to any true person, when it comes to talking about the narrative or trying to change the narrative on Black men, just pay attention to the world around you. When I go pick up my kids from school, you know, like 70% of them are dads, and Black men. And my kids go to um, private school and there, but there's a lot of Black kids that go to this private school. Um, uh, and then we have a chart. Then there is um, uh, when we was at a charter school, a public charter school, it was a lot of there was a heavy minority charter school at the time. Most of the time, I just sit there and I watch and be dads picking up their kids, dropping off their kids. You would think that it's just moms doing it.
Right.
Not the
Right.
case. That is not the case. So I would ask anyone to just pay attention to your world, man. Pay attention to what's happening when you see that old man who's walking with the veteran's hat on, retired. I mean, that's a brother of substance.
Right.
That's a gentleman who served his country, right? He was in Vietnam. He was in Korea. He was in Desert Storm. I mean, um, most of those individuals have contributed to society, but you got to pay attention. And most
Right.
folks don't want to pay attention.
Right. I hear you. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. So how do folks follow you? Where are you at on social media, or where can we sort of follow your journey and see what you're up to?
Oh man. Let me see. Where am I? So I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. At President_Ray. And of course that's Ray, Rey. I'm on Facebook, Chris Ray. I got a page on Facebook. Uh, I need to work on getting an actual page. I mean, I have the domain, but I don't have a page, right? That's one of the things I'm working on this summer is some more of my own personal branding. Like, just sometimes I sit back and I'm like, man, I do a lot of good stuff. I need to,
Yeah.
I need to think through this thing, right? Uh, so yeah, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, at President_Ray, and of course on Facebook. I don't do the Snapchat, and I'm not on TikTok. I am on TikTok, but I just be watching TikToks. I look at humanity and just laugh and chuckle. I love human. I love human beings, man. We're just an interesting species. If I think in another life, I was probably a sociologist. Just studying humans, studying people, and so I think some of those traits just came with me over to this life. So, maybe in the next life I'll go back to being an archaeologist or something like that.
Right. Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. Honorable Brother Chris V. Ray, JD. Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast, helping us change the narrative surrounding Black men. And to everyone listening, let's keep impacting communities the same way that Brother Ray is doing. Thank you again. Appreciate you.
Excellent.